Good afternoon and welcome to The Rundown. I am your host, Captivating Christian, and here are some of your top stories for today, September 4th. The Pentagon's brass have a duty to go on record after Trump denies shocking military scandal. Rochester's mayor suspends 7 officers with pay in the death of Daniel Prude. Fox News was forced to report on Trump's loss in the polls, so they did it as fast as possible. You matter to us. Delta Airlines upgrades black traveler harassed by white flyer. Return to sender. 56% want the USPS Postmaster DeJoy to resign. A virtual video shows the Sacramento deputy kicking a suspect in the back who stands in compliance. The officer has since been disciplined after an investigation deemed his actions excessive. A black Navy veteran could topple the Republican incumbent, an Army veteran in her red state, Florida district. Let's get to the news. When President Donald Trump canceled his visit to the AZ Marne American Cemetery near Paris in 2018, he blamed the rain for the last-minute decision, saying that the helicopter couldn't fly and that the Secret Service wouldn't drive him there. Neither claim was true. Trump rejected the idea of the visit because he feared his hair would become disheveled in the rain, and because he did not believe it was important to honor American war dead. According to 4 people with first-hand knowledge of the decision and the discussion that day. In a conversation with senior staff members on that morning of the scheduled visit, Trump said, and I quote, "Why should I go to that cemetery? It is filled with losers." In a separate conversation on the same trip, Trump referred to more than 1,800 Marines who lost their lives at Belleau Woods as suckers for getting killed. Good afternoon and welcome to The Rundown. I am your host, Captivating Christian, and welcome once again to The Rundown on Cap Hill. Before we get started, I would like to say welcome to all new subscribers. Please make sure you like, share, and subscribe, and hit that notification button so you never miss an update of any news going on Cap Hill. You're here first. Now, to my state reps, welcome, welcome, welcome. Now let's get started and have some fun. All right. So first story, here we have who else but my favorite person in the whole wide world next to Lady G is President Donald Trump, who has once again put his whole foot in his mouth yet again. Now, we are not surprised, those of us have followed, that President Donald Trump doesn't like the military because he faked bone spurs so he could get out of the draft. This has also been reported by other outlets, as well as his niece in her book about the Trump family, basically about her uncle Donald Trump. So it's no surprise there. However, to go to the lengths to say that these people who died, well, first let me backtrack. He came out with the story that the helicopter wouldn't be able to fly in the rain, and that the Secret Service would not be able to drive him to where the cemetery was because of the terrain. But that was all a lie. He didn't want to go because he didn't want to get his hair messed up in the rain. That was first. And then secondly, he didn't want to go to the ceremony honoring American Marine soldiers that died overseas and are buried in a cemetery in France. He didn't want to go because he felt that he didn't want to go see dead Marines because he felt like people who die in war are losers. Coming from someone who skipped out on actually participating in a draft. I'll let that sink in. I'll wait. The biggest loser is you, Mr. President. You are the biggest loser. But anyway, I digress. So, of course, he's denying it. But we all know the type of person he is. So I am not surprised. And as the commander-in-chief, I definitely think that people in the armed forces, I know a lot of people in the armed forces like to vote Republican, but I implore you to really think about the person that you are following, that you are allowing to be the commander-in-chief, that really thinks of your dead comrades as losers when they were losing their lives for democracy and American freedom and American ideals. I don't think that's someone who's a loser. I think the person who's in charge of commanding them, who uses them as toys like little green men, I think that person is a loser. And I think November will really show who the loser is. And it should definitely be Donald Jackass Trump. The Rochester mayor, Lovely Warren, ordered the immediate suspension of 7 police officers involved in the death of Daniel Prude. She also rebuked the police chief for his handling of the case, including a failure to inform her on the full details of the March 23rd incident until early August. The actions were announced at a press conference late Thursday afternoon. The steps came hours after members of the city council sent her a letter calling for the stronger actions in response to Prude's death. Warren outlined a number of steps, including changes to the policies for reporting in custody deaths to her and a call to double funding for the forensic intervention team, which assists individuals with mental health needs and who have frequent contact with law enforcement. Now, here's a story that I reported on just yesterday about the young man that died at the hands of the police in Rochester, New York. He was actually naked and complying to police officers. I believe they say he was spitting, so they put a bag over his head. However, they held him down on the pavement with their knees, and he wound up dying. Now, do I personally think there's a bit of a cover-up here on all fronts? Yes, just because of the heightened situations of George Floyd and everything else, because this happened back in March. So I definitely believe that they've been trying to keep this under wraps for a very long time. However, it got out. So now everybody's kind of pointing the finger. Do I think the mayor knew everything? No. But did I think the mayor knew something? Yes. There's no way you have a police chief and you don't really know what's going on. Because if you don't, then that means you don't trust your police chief and they need to be fired. But the fact that the police chief was not fired, the police officers, all 7 of them were suspended with pay, waiting for an investigation of some sort. I don't know. But first of all, this is a clear sign that the police unions have way too much power. That they can actually, police can do things and they can be covered up for so long until they get exposed, and then now everybody wants to point the finger at who did what or who didn't do their part. I think everybody failed this young man. The mayor failed him. I believe the police, of course, the police department failed them because they're full of corrupt police officers, period. So another reason why the police needs to be defunded. Again, it's not saying get rid of police and we're just going to have lawlessness running around and running rampant. That is not what anybody is saying. It is definitely that it needs to be defunded because there is too much power in police unions and the police department itself, that this young man had to lose his life. Another young person had to lose their life for what? I believe at this point, you're saying it without saying it. You enjoy this brutality. You enjoy this fear that you bring upon people of color. It is something that they enjoy. They will continue to do as long as they have the power to do so. And that is where your vote lies, to change that power. And if that means changing the power even from the hands of the Democrats that are in office currently, like the mayor, like whomever else, then so be it. The segment, which was 22 seconds of news about 8 polls that were released on Tuesday, the numbers show that Trump's argument that former Vice President Joe Biden is a secret anti-fascist protester that will invade the suburbs and wreak havoc on people's vegetable gardens isn't working. Okay, in this particular story, I was looking for the clip but couldn't find it. But anyway, Fox News was doing a report on the polls, and all of the polls are really showing after the Republican convention, some of the polls really changed and put Biden ahead by more than he was before in some, and some that where they were kind of tied, Biden has a couple points in the lead. However, because there were so many, there were about 8 polls that Fox News was displaying, they hurried up and displayed them really quickly because Trump was not leading in any of them. So, of course, we know that Fox News has been somewhat of a mouthpiece for Trump to actually, keep his theories going and all that other kind of stuff. But you can even see where in which even now Fox News is scared about the possibility of there being no second term for President Donald Trump. Very interesting. But that also goes to show you how he is with numbers. When they don't favor him, he doesn't want to show them, like what's going on with the coronavirus. He now has the CDC talking about, no, they're not going to show any numbers, that any numbers will be coming directly from the White House. Why? So they can cushion them so they don't look as bad. Actually, we're already at 6 million people infected, and we're still climbing as far as death tolls are concerned. We're already at 180,000. Yeah, that part. So it's really ridiculous how so concerned with numbers he is instead of actual things like on the ground. Still stuck in the head of somebody watching TV and looking for ratings instead of actually being a president. That's why it was a bad move. Hey, this is Captivating Christian here to remind you to tune in to Politics and Wellness every Tuesday night at 8 p.m. Politics and Wellness every Tuesday night at 8 p.m. You never know what you might get. Demetria Poe is applauding Delta Airlines for taking a stance against racism and discrimination after she was harassed by her seatmate during a recent flight from Minneapolis to Washington, D.C. Poe told the USA Today that a white woman appeared to purposely swipe her American flag face mask for a Blue Lives Matter mask once she realized her seat assignment was next to Poe, a black woman. Blue Lives Matter support police officers and is a counter movement to the Black Lives Matter, which aims to eradicate white supremacy and has organized nationwide protests in response to police violence against black people. In this particular story, I will say it is great when people stand up to racism and discrimination, especially when companies do it. Because, truth be told, we will not be able to stand up to change racism and discrimination in this country. What needs to start happening is white folks need to start standing up against discrimination and racism to their white counterparts and letting them know, hey, that's wrong, you don't do that. That is the only way really the system will change. Other than that, there will always be some kind of adverse reaction to someone who you already see as less than, kind of demanding that you change. And that will always bring conflict. But anyway, here's a story where a young lady was on a flight and her seat partner had a American flag mask on, and then she went to take her American flag mask on to put on her Blue Lives Matters Blue Lives Matter mask on, in contrast to this black woman, to let her know she stands with police and is okay with police brutality. But it's just like, and if you haven't heard of Jane Elliott, I implore you to check her out. I know she has a couple of video clips on YouTube. Basically, she talks to fellow white people and kind of gets them to understand that if you know what's going on with people of color, black people and people of color, and you do nothing about it, that means you're okay with it as long as it's not you. And that is the same thing that is being perpetuated here, which is a form of racism. So the airline people actually removed her seat and upgraded her due to the discrimination she felt on the plane. They just removed her and put her in a better seat in first class, which of course was a great move. But again, the others need to start stepping up. White people need to start stepping up and calling it out. It is not just enough for us to constantly call it out, constantly, put it on blast, or put the Karens on blast or the Kens on blast. You also need to put your own people on blast and call it out when they say it, when they do it, anything like that, because anything else is being complicit. Anything less is racism. A majority of American voters, including a sizable share of Republicans, believe Postmaster General DeJoy should resign or be removed from his role at the U.S. Postal Service, according to a new polling. As scrutiny has intensified on DeJoy and his history as a businessman in the wake of the controversial changes he posed to and at the agency. The data for Progress and the Justice Collaborative Institute poll found that 56% of respondents, including 77% of Democrats and 49% of Independents and 39% of Republicans, strongly and somewhat support DeJoy being removed from office. The poll, which surveyed 1,135 likely voters on August 21st, also found a bipartisan majority of about 65%, including 55% of Republicans, supporting recent passed House legislation that would reverse DeJoy's changes and restore the USPS to the pre-2020 standard of service, and 70%, including 57% of Republicans, want the agency to receive the $25 billion in government funding being pushed by Democrats. And this particular article couldn't have just a better title: Return to Sender. So Louis DeJoy, the Postmaster General, of course, have been bending over backwards to ensure President Donald Trump's re-election by removing postal mailboxes, also removing the sorting machines to make the whole counting mail ballots very difficult, even laying off or cutting the hours of many of the postal workers to ensure that a lot of the mail-in ballots will be sitting in dark rooms and will never get counted until at least after the election. And by then, he'll probably be president again. Let's hope to God not. But yeah, so there's been an outcry of like, what the hell is going on? And they're asking for DeJoy now to resign. So do we think he's gonna do it? Hell no. He's had a lot of, he's a big supporter of President Donald Trump. He's a large donor. He's donated somewhere in the hundreds of thousands of dollars to his campaign. So it's just crooked all around. Like, the corruption is beyond words. The level of corruption, the depth to how low they will go. And it's funny, he talked about being cleaning the swamp and clearing the swamp, and he is literally, if DC was a swamp before he got here, he done turned that swamp into a theme park with the amount of corruption, backdoor dealing, and flat out cheating that he is doing. And the fact, again, that these Republicans can stand by and allow him to do that, and these be the most patriotic party, always talking about America this and America that, and pulling yourself up by your bootstraps, and you could have or allow people to interfere and cheat in something that you hold so sacred as an election of your officials is ridiculous. And you're bringing a tarnished party that will never be the same again. I don't think the Republican Party will be able to even come back after this, truly. If they allow this to continue forward, there will be no Republican Party come 2024. It will be something totally different, almost pretty much like some sort of dictatorship that we've never seen in this country ever before. And be sure to join Jay Wilson, Rebel Son, The Official Kingpin, Conscious TV, and Captivating Christian this and every Thursday at 6:45 Central Standard Time, 7:45 Eastern Standard Time for the Gentleman's Panel, where we are not afraid to go there and discuss an array of topics. See you there. In a new viral video that has been watched by some 8 million people and shows a Sacramento County Sheriff deputy using his knee to kick a black man in the back during an arrest, while the suspect is seemingly standing in complete compliance. Although the incident occurred in March of 2020, it was recently shared by the NFL Hall of Famer Shannon Sharpe on Twitter. Doing so brought about a fresh wave of criticism about police brutality, and the officer is now facing national scrutiny. Alright, so this particular story, I can put the link probably in my community feed, but YouTube has been acting funny when I post videos of things and situations that happen. They always seem to give me some kind of guidelines about the age demographic or whatever, even though I already have my stuff set for 18 and older. So whatever. Of course, they don't like stuff to get out. They don't like too much about it, I guess. But if I was talking about Donald Trump in such a great light, instead of all of this police brutality, which is still happening to our people, what do you want me to do? I'm not just going to sit around and allow this to happen without using something to help the word get out. So be it. Oh well. But this particular man was kicked in the back by the deputy. However, it did not come fully into light again until the NFL player Shannon Sharpe who does the MS, not MS, the ESPN show, excuse me, with the other white gentleman, and they kind of go back and forth on social issues as well as football. Till he posted it on his Twitter account, and then it kind of blew up all over again, which caused them to then kind of put the spotlight back on the deputy and on the police department to actually penalize this deputy for taking that excessive action. So, excuse me. So that's basically what happened with the gist of that story. And more things like this need to happen. We need to start calling more attention to these things. So again, that's why I have my email. That's why I have my Instagram. So if you come across something, send it to me. Even if I haven't seen it, I will repost it. I will put it in the news feed so that way we can all keep ourselves informed and keep our foot on their neck, keep our finger to the pulse of what's going on with our people, that we cannot ignore. We will no longer ignore the brutality and the treatment that's been put on our people, period. The retired naval judge turned aspiring Florida politician was on her way to a small campaign event where she was to meet up with her supporters no matter the outcome. When she got the courage to pick up the phone, it was her senior advisor. "Congratulations, boss lady," he said, according to Keith in an interview with the Washington Post. Keith had just grasped 80% of the vote, a surprise to her against her opponent, the former Florida Deputy Solicitor General Oz Cortez. Cortez had raised more than $450,000 to Keith's $282,000, plus a nab and endorsement of the former U.S. Representative Patrick Murphy and other influential union and political action committees. The current climate of the pandemic and protests against police brutality has set the table for an African American veteran to represent a heavy Republican district, which credible political forecasters are now calling a toss-up. In an unexpected turn, being a black woman has worked in Keith's favor as the country grapples with policies often rooted in racism and examines who is being allowed to create them in new places. This is Keith's third time running for an office that she hopes to occupy, but her previously unsuccessful bids were staged in a socially distant world where her previous bids were unsuccessful. They weren't staged in a socially distant world where race conversations were at the top of the country's consciousness. And in this last story, I will say this. Shout out to my black women. You guys rock. Like, black women rock, black magic rocks. Everything is just so awesome. So I say all that to say, for one, black women are strong supporters of the Democratic Party, and you're rocking about 98% of the vote. So definitely they are after you guys. They are willing to hear what you have to say at the moment because they need your vote, okay? But you are still utilizing your power because you're running for office. There's more women and more women of color running for Congress this year in this election cycle for 2020, and let's make it happen. So please find out what your local offices are doing, find out what your congressional offices are doing, who's running, look at their platforms, and if it's something that you find something that resonates with you, you can go ahead and vote, campaign for them, go around and tell your friends and neighbors about these candidates. It's the only way we can affect change is by gaining political power and access to resources. So I say that to say we have Pam Keith, who is running for the 18th district, congressional district in Florida. Now, it always that saying like, once you try one time and you fail, dust yourself off and try again. Now, she didn't win. She's run before, but she didn't win. However, this time is different. People are really paying attention because we don't have much to do during this coronavirus. We're stuck inside, so on and so forth. So people have really been paying attention, and she has won her primary. She would be the first Democrat in that Republican area. So please, if you live in the Florida area in the 18th district, please check out Pam Keith. She is running again for the 18th district in Florida. We got to make these changes, people. We can't just sit back and talk about change. We have to be the change. So definitely, voting is where that is. So please, please, please check her out and vote, vote, vote. And once again, thank you for watching CCN Midday News. Hope you enjoyed. Please like, share, and subscribe. Also hit that notification button so you will never miss another news update. Have a great day. Peace.